Well, our thanks as always to Home Street Bank for their support of this podcast. If you're looking for a bank that has it all, great people, great service, great rates, this is the place for you. This is my lender of choice. It should be yours as well. Go to homestreetbank.com. It's your one-stop shop for all your banking needs, both business and personal. That's homestreetbank.com. What happens when your customers spend too much time playing spot the difference between you and your competitor? It's called the distinction bias, and we'll talk about it today on The Buyer's Mind.
Welcome to The Buyer's Mind, where we take a closer look deep inside your customer's decision-making mechanism to reverse engineer the perfect sales presentation. Now, please welcome your host, Jeff Shore.
Well, welcome everyone once again to The Buyer's Mind. I am your host, Jeff Shore, and our desire here is to help you understand what's going on in your customer's brain. We always feel like if you can understand the way that they think, the way that they make decisions, then you can reverse engineer your sales presentation to make it easy for them to do just that. Joined as always by our show producer, Paul Murphy. Hey, Murph, let me ask you a question. When's the last time you bought a television?
About 6 years ago. It's been a while.
Okay. All right. So you're due. So you're going to start looking out at to try to figure out what I'm going to look for. Now, you're more of a tech guy than most of us, but where do you buy your televisions? Do you shop online? Do you go to a Best Buy, stand at a Costco? Where do you tend to buy your televisions?
Well, I mean, I kind of do my research first, figure out which TV it is I'm looking for. Then usually start online, searching around just to see who might have the best price and the TV that I think I found.
All right, so it's a well-researched purchase for you. You're going to go out and you're going to try and figure out. But here's the thing. Even as a tech guy, let's face it, there are features that are out there on that television that you don't even know if you really need.
You know, most people don't realize that there's features that they don't need. How many HDMI ports do you really need on the back of your TV? Do you have 12? Right. It's probably a little overkill.
You know, it's funny because for me, I'm very different, and I think that there are a lot of people in your camp. They're going to go online, they're going to figure out exactly what the specs are, what they're looking at. I'm a visual, so I'm probably far more likely to be walking through a Costco and just while I'm killing time and just looking at an array of televisions, or standing in a Best Buy or whatever it is. And man, I just got videos or television screens all over the place that I can be looking at. But the issue that I have there is that when I do that, I don't really know what I'm looking at by way of the features. So I'm just looking at picture quality, right? I mean, that's really what I'm looking for more than anything else.
Well, and when you're in a Sam's and a Costco, who are you going to ask questions of?
Yeah, well, that's right. You're not going to get that help anyway, right? So I'm standing there and I'm looking at the pictures, and I might have in mind a dollar amount that I think I wanted to spend, but I'm looking at this television and that television next to it. I think this picture is slightly better. It's also $200 more than I wanted to spend. So now what do? Now I start to play spot the features, and I start scrolling through the list of all of the features, and I go, well, there it is. That it's got a higher aspect ratio. That's why it's $200 more. Now look, I have no idea what an aspect ratio is, and frankly, I don't really care. At the end of the day, all I know is when I'm watching a hockey game, I want to be able to see the puck moving clearly on a sheet of white ice. That's what I want to see. And what happens here is that as I'm making that decision, I get easily confused by features that may not matter to me. And I end up playing spot the difference in order to justify why I want this product versus that product, even though I'm making the decision according to features that don't really matter. Is that making sense, Murph?
Yeah, that makes sense. So how does a salesperson help somebody get over that?
Well, what we're talking about here is something that psychologists refer to as the distinction bias. And that distinction bias causes us to focus in oftentimes at the wrong things. And I think if you're a salesperson and you're working with a customer, it's important to understand that if you've got a product and your competitor has a product and you have another competitor with another product, but but there is a lot of similarity to those products. Okay, let's suppose that you're looking at it and it doesn't matter what the product is, a copy machine, a car, a home, whatever it is, and you've got this array of products. If you don't have something that clearly stands out, then your customer is forced to try and find out for themselves what separates these products. And then they tend to dive in and play this game of spot the difference. And the problem is that they do find differences. They're differences that don't really matter to them. And then what's going to happen by the time they're done, they're going to make the decision because this outweighs it, even though the factor doesn't really matter. And so the battle that we're facing here is to keep our customer focused in on what really matters. And I want to suggest that for salespeople, the strategy here is to make sure that your customer understands why they are buying something in the first place. And one way to do that is to make sure you are helping your customer to establish what I refer to as the hierarchy of needs. The hierarchy of needs, that is the question of what is most important? What are the most important needs that you have? And then once you've understood that, when you understand what's most important, now you can begin to separate what is a need and what is a want. And when you understand those things from a customer's perspective, then you can keep them focused on the product that makes the most sense for them according to that list. So if we're helping our customer focus, then we're trying to figure out, okay, what is their greatest need right here? Now, why is my product the best to fulfill that need? Now, look, if you don't have the product that's going to best fulfill that need, that's an entirely different story. But if you do, then you've got to keep your customer focused on what really matters. And there's a tip here for salespeople, and I call it the only technique. If you can look at it and say, this is the only place where you can get this, this, and this at under that dollar amount, okay? This is the only product where you can find these features that are very, very important to you at less than X dollars, right? You want to have something about your product that allows you to identify what is the only statement. And when I can do that, then I'm sending a message to my customer, buy this product or compromise. That's it. You're actually doing your customer a favor, because when you do that, you are keeping them focused on what matters to them. You're not trying to win the sale according to features that don't mean anything. It's all about what matters to them. So we start with what's most important. What is that hierarchy of needs? How do I get them to focus in and separate out their needs versus their wants? And that helps them to formulate a strategy. Now you're partnering with your customer to make sure they're buying the right thing. Murph, did that help you in your decision to buy your next television?
It certainly gave me food for thought. So now I'm going to have to make sure that I get the only things that are important to me.
There you go. There you go. That wraps up another episode of The Buyer's Mind. And we so appreciate your listening to The Buyer's Mind. If you're enjoying this podcast, do us a favor. Go on iTunes. Make sure you are subscribed. If you're listening right now on YouTube or at jeffshore.com, go over to iTunes and hit the subscribe button. And while you're there, we would love it if you would put a rating in and a quick review. It helps us to grow the podcast so we can get this out to more listeners and help more people to have a profound impact on changing the lives of their customers. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.